Welcome to this week's episode of Core Setting. In this week's episode of Core Setting, we're going to be talking about the Lower Decks episode. We'll always have Tom Paris, I believe. Bill, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, right.
We're talking about another episode of Lower Decks this week. First, how you doing this morning, Bill?
Doing great. Really eager to talk about this one. I feel like I need to talk about this one to sort out exactly where I fit in where this fits for me in my sort of not necessarily rankings, but just kind of sometimes these conversations are really helpful to settle down and figure out exactly how I feel. So I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Full disclosure, this week Bill and I are recording because we had some personal stuff when we usually record days after, so we've had some time to kind of process the episode, but also I think Bill's right. We're going to need some time to work through some things in this episode, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty jam-packed one. This is an example. Lower Decks does the A and B plot a lot. It's
like ABC.
A, B, and C. Yeah, I think we have three distinctive and individual storylines. All four of our characters get things
Something
to do, which is great. Yeah. We have Mariner and Tendi going on their first sort of away mission together, having their first kind of joint venture. With Boimler reacclimating to the Cerritos and his sort of hero worship of Tom Paris, who's on the ship visiting. And we have Rutherford coming to terms with Shax's seeming return somehow, some way, and dealing with sort of survivor's guilt, which is a pretty heavy topic to tackle in a show like Lower Decks.
Yeah.
So, do you have well, first of all, what are your overall, I guess, before we get into each one of them? And
overall thoughts. Very positive. I think a lot of the most of the ABC plots I was fine with. I think my favorite probably was Mariner with Tendi going off on a. I think it kind of plays into the hand of Lower Decks type of setup where it's kind of a menial task they're going on, but I think there's some fun coworker stuff that gets kind of explored with that type of stuff, and then also some great Tendi backstory was I think very funny and very interesting. So that's probably my favorite kind of plotline of this episode. But overall thoughts on I enjoyed it for the most part. There were some things that I was iffy about, but also there were some. Again, I feel like it was a successful episode where I was laughing. So yeah, I think all around good episode.
I think it was good too. I'm pretty happy with it. I think there are jokes in it that really land. It made me laugh on more than one occasion, genuinely laugh. And it, I think, had a really nice. I don't know if it's a message, but it explores a real life thing that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially relating to Mariner and Tendi's relationship, and what it is and what it's not, and how it's still growing, and I think a lot of people can find truth in that experience that they had in this episode on their mission together. And so when I factor that in, talking about Lower Decks in a 20-minute episode, if Lower Decks makes me laugh and it gives me a something cool to think about, and it's sort of message of the week or the thing of the week.
What more can you ask for, right?
How's it not successful, right? So I got to give it it's a thumbs up for me. I think it's a good episode.
Yeah, I think I think it's kind of overall a successful episode. I think the Rutherford one plotline is interesting to me because bringing back a character is tough for me, but I think what it does a little bit I think is successful. I think it explores that the Lower Decks don't always know what's going on, and sometimes that's probably for the best. And I think there was a little on the nose type of commentary on bringing back characters or characters coming back from something very epic, and so I think that's there was some interesting commentary on that, but so yeah, take that for what it was. But yeah,
I agree. The Rutherford storyline is the one that I think I have the most mixed feelings about. I feel like bringing Shax back.
Is that what you have a problem with, or is there?
Kind of, yeah. I really feel like that's one of the things that really stuck with me with the finale. Is the way that show kind of quietly made me feel so attached to these characters, and then I think doing what it did to Shax really drove home, like in just 10 short episodes that are really breezy and funny and light, how much it made me care about the crew and the family on that ship, and that death really puts a period or an exclamation point on the end of that. So I kind of wish they left it alone and let that stand as a thing that happened. But the joke that when they rattle off all these ways that different characters have come back, it's kind of like a touche. You're right, Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah.
It does happen a lot. And it's an ongoing joke for sure. Like, how many times, like, if you follow Star Trek, like when people talk about characters that have died, like the long running assumption that nobody's ever really dead in Star Trek. Like, there's always a way to bring somebody back in some version of, like, using the holodeck or bring them back through, like, the very, very many ways that they've done it. And it's true. There's been a ton of it over the course of the 55 years. To be honest, it's something that I kind of wish was done a little less, just from my personal preference. I think it's not my favorite thing that they do. Sometimes it's really effective, and they find really innovative ways to do it. But yeah, that's the thing that sort of sticks out to me as man. I kind of wish they just left it alone. But I do like that it forces Rutherford to deal with it, like that you know. It's something that we don't see a lot of. We see a lot of times characters deal with, like, that are in these situations and somebody dies alongside them on a mission. Getting to see that Rutherford's kind of messed up by it and has survivor's guilt and is processing what that means. That for Lower Decks to tackle that and to be the show that really, like, puts an emphasis on what it feels like to be the survivor in that situation is an impressive feat, and I give him credit for that.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It feels like death doesn't have as much weight as it usually does in other, like, iterations of TV and other things. So it just feels like, I know there's also a running joke of, like, the red shirt that dies every other episode in TOS. Well, it feels kind of like that, where it's like death doesn't mean as much to Star Trek, so
can get like that.
Yeah. So
yeah, and that's what I kind of push back against a little bit. So I'm mixed there. That's kind of where I have the most ambiguity with this one. The Boimler, I can kind of take or leave a lot of that. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Of course, I love hearing Robert Downey McNeil's voice again. I love seeing Tom Paris. That's cool. Never gonna complain to have those legacy characters back, especially in this show. I feel like it's natural and feels right, and it's perfectly fine for them to be cameos and not have a whole lot going on, but to have them appear, like, it works in the show. To do that, it feels like a good place for them to explore that. And I like Boimler, the gag about him not being, like, integrated back in the computer yet. The computer doesn't detect him at the doors and stuff like that, which is really cool. That's one of those, like, little things, like, how does the door? Sometimes the door opens, sometimes it doesn't for people, like in all the shows. And
we've seen it because
yeah. So I thought that was a funny gag. The Kazon joke with Paris is the biggest laugh that it's gotten out of me this season, for sure. I thought that was really funny.
I thought it was funny and clever that he's fangirls over all these plates. Like, he has all the avoid of all the plates. I thought that was kind of funny and cute. But yeah, I think anytime we get to see Robert Downey McNeil is always awesome. So, and it kind of flipped it on its head, because I thought we would get a true fangirl moment with Tom and but we didn't. We got the opposite,
Yeah.
which was kind of fun and interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I think I like the way that played out. I enjoyed the payoff of that more than I enjoyed the build up. I think the joke at the end of that storyline was really funny, and I think that's fine. That's probably the of the three storylines, even though it's the one that kind of carries the title. It's probably the one that I'll think of the least. I think it's the one that makes the least like impact. And the Mariner Teddy sort of a plot. I think I would
say,
it a plot.
Yeah.
I think carries the most heft in terms of bringing interesting things to the table to think about and to relate to. You know, I think a lot of us can relate to having coworkers that you're really close with on the job and that you work closely with, and you know, realizing that you really don't know much of anything about outside those walls, like the backstory, what they've gone through, what their family is like, what their you know nothing of their sort of origin story, and the question of is it a friend or a coworker when you figure that out. Like, how do you define what a friend is? Like, this is a person that you're with every day, and that you're really close with on that basis, that you work with closely. Like you're really tied at the hip in a lot of ways, but you come to realize, man, there's a whole side of this person that I don't have a clue about. Like, I think that's a really neat thing to explore. And in Star Trek, it's such a foundational principle that it's about these families on these ships that are like work families. And this show dug into that a little bit. You know, just how close they are or not, and what's private and what's known. Like, I love that exploration between those two characters,
which I think is relatable to everyone who's watching Star Trek, because I think in our everyday work lives we have this type of kind of situation. So I think I do really love that aspect of this episode for sure.
Yeah, I think most of us can divide our like work relationships into three columns. You have people that are just coworkers that you interact with on a professional basis, and that's it. You have people that are work friends that you work closely with, that are like this Mariner and Tendi thing, like you work closely together, but it doesn't really bound outside of the workplace. And then every once in a while, you get a friend at work that does seep into your personal life and can get a little bit more entangled with the outside of work stuff. And I think that middle one, the work friend that doesn't really necessarily go outside the work bounds, is pretty common. And I think that's maybe the most, at least in my experience, has been sort of a pretty common thing to have. And I don't think about it very often, but this episode made me do it. Made me kind of think about my own people that I work with and how I kind of see them and what I know about them and what I don't. I appreciated that. That's what Star Trek does best, right? Like, it reflects on you and makes you think about your own.
Yeah, that's Star Trek in a nutshell. For
friendships and relationships.
Completely honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also like to see that that we're getting to see this oftentimes in other iterations of Star Trek, that relationship's already built. Like, we don't really get to see that. They build their kind of connections through their work. But this is it feels a little bit different. It feels more honest and more true. Like, I feel like what happened in just everyday life, where you would go on an extended work trip or happy hour, whatever you do, you will get to have these kind of conversations. So I think that's some very realistic and kind of honest things that we get to see in this episode.
It is. And you think about it, like, in this episode, Mariner's discovering how much about Tendi she doesn't know, right? And when you think about Star Trek as a whole, what's the friendship that comes the most to mind? Like, what's the best, like, core friendship in Star Trek, in your opinion? Do you think?
We could go a lot of different ways. Like,
a lot of different directions. I have one in mind.
Kirk and Spock, and
yes, right there. Stop.
Okay.
Right there. Kirk and Spock. Until Star Trek V, does Kirk know that Spock has a brother?
No.
Does Kirk have a clue that he has a sister?
No.
No. And
Oh, that's true. That is true, man. You're exactly right. That's true. Wow. Okay.
even that friendship, that is like the sort of core one
The
that everybody
poster
points to,
child
is like
of Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what Star Trek is. It's about friendship and brotherhood and all that stuff. And these two guys that we all kind of like idolize is like the classic example of what a friend is. There's lines around what they know and what they don't, and that's. I think that's relatable. I think that happens in life.
Yeah.
As we become professionals and start working.
Mind blown.
Have all that stuff.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. And there's also like, if we're talking about disconnect from like lower decks and like the bridge crew, like I feel like the lower deck people, they don't realize that Picard has a heart condition or
right.
Any like this. We're seeing that disconnect here a little bit, which I do appreciate as well, because I think that there's stuff like that in real life in jobs and things. So
I think in almost every relationship you ever have, there are things that person
doesn't know about you.
Spouses aside, maybe, but like yeah, there's things that they know and there's things that they don't, and that's I think that's just true. And I love the way that this kind of forces you to reflect on your own. At least forced me to reflect on my own friendships and relationships and associations. And, like I said, if a 20-minute episode of Lower Decks that's so breezy, so fast, and trying to do so many things at once can give me that much to sort of bandy about and think about, it's a successful outing, I think.
Anything else before we wrap it up?
What's your favorite of the three so far?
Last week's episode, I think. I would probably put the second, I think, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe.
You and me both. I think 2, 3, and 1 would be my stacking of the three. Yeah. I think last week's was more airtight in terms of like I didn't have really any ambiguity with decisions like the Shaxx. Like the Shaxx thing, I still have
mixed feelings about.
Yeah, that's gonna dog me a little bit. I think it's one of those things that I kind of wish I didn't do. But I think this brings a lot to the table at the same time, and it's outweighed. I think positives outweigh that one thing I wish was different. But last week's I didn't really have any. I didn't really have anything negative to say at all last week.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that a lot, and even though I think this one has more meat on the bones for like
it does. It really does.
I think this one has more of a pointed, made me reflect more than last week's did. Last week's felt more breezy and enjoyable, and
and not just one aspect of like not just one A plot or one B plot. I think at least like the A and B plot for me, I think have something to take away from.
Yeah. Agreed.
Maybe it's C plot. I don't know. We'll see.
In the C plot, you get to see Tom Paris again.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Even that. Yeah. We get a legacy character. And it's always good. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that about does it. Try to stick to 20 to 25 minutes on these episodes. I think this week's episode definitely I think is really entrenched in anything Star Trek. There's so many little Easter eggs that us fans can pick up on, but it also makes you laugh, and it has a takeaway. And I think that's when Star Trek is most successful. So we'll be back next week to talk about Lower Decks again at some point. But I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.